Today we will see what is meant by a clutch. A clutch is a part of transmission system which is located in between flywheel and the gearbox. हम लोग अभी देखेंगे कि क्लच का लोकेशन कहाँ पे है. सो क्लच इज लोकेटेड इन बिटवीन फ्लाईव्हील एंड द गियर बॉक्स. यहाँ पे ये इंजन का पोर्शन है. दिस इज द लेआउट ऑफ चेसिस. गाड़ी का जो ये आता है चेसिस आता है उसका एक सिंपल लेआउट है फ्रंट साइड का. ओके, सो दिस वन इज द इंजन. ये पूरा पार्ट इंजन का हो गया. देन अ क्रैंकशाफ्ट इज देयर. क्रैंकशाफ्ट को क्या कनेक्ट कर दिया है? फ्लाईव्हील. फ्लाईव्हील के बाद में आता है क्लच और क्लच के बाद में आता है गियर बॉक्स. मतलब अगर हम लोग फ्लाईव्हील रोटेट करेंगे तो क्लच रोटेट होगा, क्लच रोटेट होगा तो गियर बॉक्स रोटेट होगा एंड द पावर विल बी ट्रांसमिटेड. सो दिस इज द लोकेशन ऑफ क्लच. कहाँ पे लोकेट कर किया गया है क्लच? Clutch is located in between flywheel and the gearbox. Okay, now this is a simple layout of transmission system. यहाँ पे भी हम लोग देख सकते हैं क्लच कहाँ पे लोकेट कर दे. तो ये तो अभी आप लोगों को इमीडिएट समझ में आया होगा. दिस वन इज द फ्रंट व्हील, रेयर व्हील, डिफरेंशियल ना. देन इंजन इज देयर विच इज कॉल्ड एज अ पावर प्लांट, जो पावर जनरेट करता है. पावर वो ट्रांसफर होता है क्लच को, और क्लच से पावर जाता है ट्रांसमिशन सिस्टम को. सो इट इज द मीडिएटर बिटवीन इंजन एंड द ट्रांसमिशन सिस्टम. सो एक दूसरे से पावर डिस्कनेक्ट करने के लिए क्लच का यहाँ पे यूज होता है. ओके, व्हाई दिस क्लच इज नेसेसरी? सी, as we know that we have to run the vehicle either on the plain road or on the hill we have to climb. Okay, so at that time we have to shift the vehicle from first gear to second, second to third, third to fourth, and from fourth to again maybe second, first, like that. So at that time it is necessary to disconnect the power from engine to the transmission system. जब हम लोग गियर शिफ्ट करते हैं तो हम लोग पहले क्लच दबा देते हैं. क्यों दबाते हैं क्लच? बिकॉज इंजन का पावर ट्रांसमिशन सिस्टम से हमको डिस्कनेक्ट करना है, ताकि all the gears, rotating gears will become stationary. Okay, free हो जाते हैं. So at that time we can shift one gear to second gear. So it can avoid the clashing of gears and breaking of the teeth. So to avoid this, it is necessary to have a clutch in the automobile gearbox, in the automobile transmission system. So this is about the location of this clutch. Okay, so here let's see what is the function of this clutch. अभी clutch का function तो running में ही मैंने एक आप लोगों को पता दिया था, but फिर भी मैं उसको repeat कर रहा हूँ. This clutch is used to engage and disengage power from engine to the gearbox whenever necessary. Okay, then second function of clutch is that it will engage and disengage the power smoothly. Okay, power smoothly while transmitting this power from engine to the gearbox and from gearbox to the rear wheel. हम लोग जब इसको engage करते disengage करते, so at that time it will take care that the power should be transferred smoothly without any jerk. Okay, so the smooth power transmission is there. So these are the two function of this clutch. So here we have seen what is clutch, where it is located, what are the function of clutch, and why clutch is necessary. Why clutch is necessary? Clutch is necessary to shift the vehicle from first gear to second gear, second to third. We have to disconnect the power from engine to the transmission system. So that's why here a clutch is incorporated. Now let's see what is the classification of clutch. The clutch is classified as सिंगल प्लेट क्लच. ओके, सिंगल प्लेट क्लच मतलब एक ही क्लच प्लेट इसमें यूज किया जाता है. सिंगल प्लेट कॉइल स्प्रिंग क्लच. अभी सिंगल प्लेट क्लच दो पार्ट में क्लासिफाई होता है, सिंगल प्लेट कॉइल स्प्रिंग क्लच एंड सिंगल प्लेट डायफ्राम क्लच. ओके, here a small little bit of difference between these. Number of coil springs are provided and a single diaphragm spring is provided. Okay, so single plate clutch. The next classification is multi-plate clutch. उसके बाद में cone clutch आता है, फिर semi centrifugal clutch आता है and then centrifugal clutch. So this is about the classification of clutches. Now what we will see one by one, we will see the first two clutches, that is their construction and working. So let's see. This is single plate coil spring clutch. So let's say the single plate coil spring clutch. Now this single plate coil spring clutch is basically consist of clutch pedal, जहाँ से हम लोग pedal press करके clutch को operate करते हैं. In case of two wheeler there is a lever to operate this clutch. Okay, so वहाँ पे हम लोग क्या करते हैं, pressure apply करते हैं. So this is called as clutch pedal. Now this one is called as pressure plate. This bent portion is called as pressure plate. Okay, now this the main important portion, that is this portion which is called as a clutch plate or also called as a friction plate. So this clutch plate is mounted on the hub. Okay, so this having a central hub, this clutch plate is having this central hub hatching portion. Okay, this central hub is having internal splines आप लोगों को पता है अंदर टिप्स रहते हैं internally. Okay, so that internal splines will perfectly match with the external splines on this clutch shaft. See, if you observe that this one is the clutch shaft के ऊपर external splines है, उसके ऊपर internal splines इसके माउंट मैच किए गए हैं clutch plate के. Okay, that's why it can slide on it, move on this clutch shaft के ऊपर ये clutch plate move भी हो सकता है और rotate भी हो सकता है, slide भी हो सकता है और rotate भी हो सकता है. So if you observe that at the outer periphery, यहाँ पे अगर आप लोग देखते हैं दोनों साइड से, okay, so on both the sides of this clutch plate, both the sides of this clutch plate, friction linings are provided. Now this is the huge part which is called as a flywheel, heavy loaded part, flywheel which is connected with the crankshaft. अभी हम लोगों ने लेआउट में देखा था कि ये कहाँ पे कनेक्ट कर दिया है, crankshaft को. Okay, so this is about the construction of this single plate coil spring. So फिर से मैं रिपीट करने वाला हूँ. It basically consists of a clutch pedal. Then pressure plate, clutch plate called as a friction plate, flywheel. Okay, here 8 to 24 in numbers. Okay, what they are, these are called as a clutch springs which are provided having 8 to 24 in numbers depending on the size of clutch के size के हिसाब से number of coil springs क्या होंगे, vary होने वाले. Okay, so this pressure plate is connected or fixed directly with the flywheel by means of this bolt and the coil spring. So this is about the construction of the single plate coil spring clutch. Now we will see how this single plate coil spring clutch will work. तो अभी जनरल कंसेप्ट तो समझ में आ चुका होगा, क्लच कैसे ऑपरेट करते, क्या करना पड़ेगा सबसे पहले क्लच ऑपरेट कर. यस, it should be necessary to keep in mind that this clutch is always in engaged position. आप लोग गाड़ी शुरू करते as soon as we start the vehicle, this clutch is always in engaged position. जब हमको यूज करना है, so we have to disengage it for disengaging the power. तो यहाँ पे हम लोग क्या करेंगे, for operating this clutch we have to apply the force on this pedal. पैर से हम लोग क्या करेंगे, पेडल को प्रेस कर देंगे. Now when we apply the force on this pedal, obviously this pressure plate with this throat bearing, it will apply the force on the thrust bearing. Okay, so this thrust bearing against the force of this spring will take away this pressure plate towards the right side, take away from the flywheel towards the right side. It means that हम लोग यहाँ पे pressure apply कर रहे हैं. pressure apply करने के बाद में pressure plate क्या होगा, it will move towards the right against this spring force, so which makes the clutch plate free. ये क्या करेगा, clutch plate को free कर देगा. अगर clutch plate free होता है, so clutch plate ये दोनों के बीच में freely move होता है, इसलिए यहाँ का पावर क्लच प्लेट के थ्रू इधर ट्रांसफर नहीं होता है. इट विल नॉट ट्रांसफर टू द क्लच शाफ्ट, दैट्स व्हाई द क्लच इज इन डिसएंगेज पोजीशन. नाउ वी हैव टू एंगेज द क्लच. सो व्हाट वी विल डू टू एंगेज द क्लच, ऑब्वियसली पेडल से पैर उठा लेना है आप लोगों को. अगर हम लोग पेडल से पैर उठा लेते हैं, सो व्हाट विल हैपन, ये जो स्प्रिंग है ये क्या करेगा, ये प्रेशर प्लेट को फोर्स कर देगा. कहाँ पे, टुवर्ड्स द क्लच प्लेट. ओके, सो दिस प्रेशर प्लेट विल मूव टुवर्ड्स द clutch plate. Okay, now this will apply the force of this spring on the clutch plate, so it makes contact with the flywheel. So whenever it makes contact with the flywheel, the power from flywheel will transfer to the clutch plate, from clutch plate to the clutch shaft, and from clutch shaft to the gearbox. So in this position we will say that the clutch is in engaged position. दो ही पॉइंट्स रहने वाले हैं वर्किंग में, एक तो डिसएंगेज, दूसरा एंगेज. डिसएंगेज कैसे होता है, पेडल को प्रेस करना है, प्रेशर प्लेट will move towards the right. Okay, so when the pressure plate will move towards the right, clutch plate becomes free, which makes there is no contact between these two. क्लच प्लेट यहाँ पे फ्री हो जाती है, फ्लाईव्हील से कनेक्शन में नहीं आती है वो, सो यहाँ पे पावर डिसएंगेज होता है. और एंगेज करना है तो पेडल से पैर उठा देना है आप लोगों को. देन क्लच प्लेट विल मूव टूवर्ड्स द लेफ्ट. ओके, प्रेशर प्लेट also move towards the left, forcing the clutch plate to make contact with the flywheel. Okay, so as soon as it makes contact with the flywheel, the power from engine to the flywheel, from flywheel to the clutch plate, and from clutch plate to the clutch shaft will be transferred. So in this way we will say the clutch is engaged. So this is the case where clutch is in engage and disengage position. Okay, let's see the second type of clutch, that is called as a डायफ्राम क्लच. तो पहले हम लोग सिंगल प्लेट कॉइल स्प्रिंग के पार्ट्स एक बार देख लेते हैं. सो दिस वन इज कॉल्ड एज अ क्लच प्लेट. आप लोग देखिए यहाँ पे, दिस आर कॉल्ड एज फ्रिक्शन लाइनिंग. दिस इज द फ्लाई व्हील. ओके, दिस आर द कॉइल स्प्रिंग. कितने नंबर्स में रहते हैं? 8 to 24 इन नंबर. दिस इज कॉल्ड एज अ कवर क्लच कवर. ओके, दिस इज द fork. Here is the thrust bearing. Okay, fork with thrust bearing. So these are the components of single plate coil spring clutch. Now let's see, this is called as a single plate diaphragm clutch. Now this single plate diaphragm clutch, if you observe that, तो हम लोग पहले exploded view देख लेंगे इसका, so that it can be very much clear. Now this is about the coil spring clutch and this is the diaphragm clutch. अभी देखिए यहाँ पे 1 2 3 8 to 24 in numbers of coil springs provided. This part will be same, this part will be same, this part clutch plate will be same. This is the pressure plate, of course this is the pressure plate. Now these are the coil spring. So instead of this 8 to 24 numbers coil spring, here a single diaphragm spring is provided. सिंगल डायफ्राम स्प्रिंग इज प्रोवाइडेड. सो यहाँ पे 8 से 24 नंबर्स में क्या आते हैं? कॉइल स्प्रिंग आते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पे एक सिंगल डायफ्राम स्प्रिंग प्रोवाइड किया जाता है. यहाँ पे लीवर्स सेपरेटली प्रोवाइड किए जाते हैं, यहाँ पे लीवर्स नहीं रहते. ये जो कट सेक्शन दिखाया गया है यहाँ पे, ओके, दिस कट सेक्शन विल एक्ट एज अ लीवर. दिस इज इनर रिम and this is outer rim. Okay, these two are the fulcrum rings. They are called as pivot rings. अभी ये डायफ्राम स्प्रिंग यहाँ पे कनेक्ट किया रहता है, कहाँ पे? कवर असेंबली को विद द हेल्प ऑफ रिवेट. Okay, so we will say single plate diaphragm clutch is basically consist of a single diaphragm spring. This single diaphragm spring. Okay, so basically consists of a single diaphragm spring. So this black color portion is called as a single diaphragm spring. Okay, which is hold against the cover plate. Okay, against the cover by means of pivot rings. Okay, as well as by means of a rivet, and which makes a contact with the pressure plate, Now this is the pressure plate. So this clutch is diaphragm spring is always forcing the pressure plate towards the clutch plate and makes contact with the flywheel. Clutch plate makes contact with the flywheel. Okay, now let's see how this clutch will work. Okay, so components तो clear हो चुके हैं हम लोगों को. It basically consists of flywheel, pressure plate, diaphragm, pivot rings, then clutch plate, thrust bearing or throwout bearings, and the release lever, Okay, so these are the component, or we can say fork. These are the components of the single plate diaphragm clutch. It means that instead of a coil spring, a diaphragm spring is provided in case of a diaphragm clutch. Now let's see the working of this clutch. हम लोग अभी just simply working देख लेते हैं. How? When we will apply the force on the thrust bearing, pedal से हम लोग thrust bearing के ऊपर अगर force apply करते हैं, so this force is applied on the inner rim of this diaphragm spring. इसके inner rim पे force apply होता है. It will apply the force on the inner rim of diaphragm spring. So this inner rim will move towards the flywheel. Okay, so at the same time this outer rim move away from the flywheel. So the situation will like that. This is the diaphragm spring. Okay, when we will apply the force, it will work like this. It will work like this. Okay, so this is the force applied at the centrally. This will move towards the flywheel, and the outer rim, this outer rim will move away from the flywheel. So when it moves away from the flywheel, it means that this pressure plate, it is taking the pressure plate away from the flywheel just by making this फ्रिक्शन प्लेट फ्री. सो एट दैट टाइम द क्लच इज डिसएंगेज. अगर फ्रिक्शन प्लेट फ्री होता है तो क्लच क्या होता है, डिसएंगेज, बिकॉज इट इज नॉट इन कॉन्टैक्ट विद द फ्लाईव्हील. क्लच प्लेट इज नॉट इन कॉन्टैक्ट विद द फ्लाईव्हील. now when the load on the pedal is released, so at that time again this outer rim will force the pressure plate towards the clutch plate, and the clutch plate makes contact with the flywheel. At the same time the inner rim will move away from the flywheel. So these three will make contacts: flywheel, clutch plate and the pressure plate, and the power is transmitted to the clutch shaft. So in this way the single plate diaphragm clutch will be working. Okay, now let's see the difference between these two clutches. So first we will see engage and disengage position of the diaphragm clutch. Okay, so this is engage position, this is disengage position. So in engage position, if you observe that the diaphragm will be a straight. diaphragm क्या होता है, straight है, तो it will apply the force on the pressure plate. ये तीनों एक दूसरे के कांटेक्ट में है, flywheel, clutch plate and the pressure plate, and the power will be transmitted. Okay, now this is the disengaged position, that is we are applying the force on the center rim. Okay, यहाँ पे force apply कर दिया, the outer rim will move away from the flywheel, that is towards the right. Okay, so with the pressure plate, so pressure plate will be away from the clutch plate. Now this clutch plate, orange color clutch plate will be free. Now when this clutch plate will be free, obviously the power will not transmitted to the clutch shaft and then to the transmission system. So this position is called as a disengage position. Now let's see the difference between coil spring and a diaphragm clutch. Okay, so as the name indicates that this is basically consists of 8 to 24 number of coil spring. Here a single diaphragm spring is provided. Here if you see that the number of release levers are provided. Here there is no need of release levers, as the inner rim ये cut sections जो दिख रहे, this can be work as a release levers. यही levers का काम करते. This can be worked as a release lever. So these are the two differences. Third difference is that because of centrifugal force, as you know that the clutch have to rotate. Okay, so because of that a centrifugal force will be acting on the coil spring. So because of that centrifugal force the coil spring can deflect. So it is more affected by centrifugal force. So this diaphragm is less affected by centrifugal force, or almost no effect of centrifugal force. So here number of spring, so that's why the pressure applied on the friction plate is non-uniform. Here it will apply it is single one, so that's why it will apply a uniform pressure on the friction plate. So more number of components are here in this case, less number of components are here, so more in weight, so less in weight. So these are the differences between single plate coil spring clutch and single plate diaphragm clutch. So what we have seen today, we have seen what is meant by a clutch, location of clutch, function of clutch, necessity of clutch, single plate coil spring construction and working, then single plate diaphragm clutch construction and working, and then the difference between single plate coil spring clutch and the diaphragm clutch. So thank you very much.